And here we are going live with Live Talk with Becky Chernek. And I got to tell you, we are going live on YouTube, Facebook, and of course, LinkedIn. So if you like what we're talking about, please share and get the news out that Becky Chernek is going live every Thursday at 8 p.m. And also, I have the most incredible featured speaker, Mr. Paul Machin. And guys, if you don't know who Paul Machin is, I'm going to tell you. Mr. Paul Machin is known as Mr. Black Book, and he has all the facts and he has all the stats to back up those facts. So this is why we love Mr. Paul Machin. So it's a pleasure to bring him on tonight. How important he is to the automotive industry. And for those that may not know who I am, my name is Becky Chernek, and I've been providing the very best in finance and insurance training for auto dealers throughout the USA and Canada. And, providing this whole talk is about providing innovative strategies, practices that help dealers to stay competitive in the marketplace. That's what it's all about. So again, Paul Machin, I want to thank you so much for being on tonight. And we are talking about your post. And you put out some amazing content. I mean to tell you, amazing content. You do. First and foremost, I read recently on one of your posts that you are talking 75% of Americans are currently earning less than $75,000 per year. Mm-hmm. And also the challenge is that they're living paycheck to paycheck. And and before we get started, Andrew Pearson, thank you so much for being on. I'm glad Andrew, that you're able to be on tonight from Facebook. Yeah. So, Paul, can you talk through what's going on with that? That was shocking to me.
Well, I'm surprised actually that some people, like you said, you're shocked that many people are still surprised to hear that that level of income that people are still struggling. And it's I remember an expression I grew up hearing: people are still broke, they're just broke at different levels, right? Okay. You learn to adapt to within your means or to live beyond those means. So, broke means to me that I'm broke now until my next paycheck. And then I'm broke, and then I got money for a few days, and then I'm broke again until my next paycheck. Well, what we're doing now is we're filling that void between when we exhaust a paycheck with a credit card. And so the daily cost of living, I don't think anybody will deny that the actual true daily cost of living in their personal lives far exceeds anything that they've planned, and it's been this way for the last several years. Things like just food, the grocery store. When's the last time you've actually went to the grocery store and spent $100 and had a full cart? I remember doing that pre-pandemic. $100, I'd have a half a cart of groceries and stuff. Now it's not so much. $100 might be 5 or 6 bags worth, and it feels kind of light. Same thing with energy. Definitely with insurance, for homeowners insurance and automotive insurance, that is driving people to spend all of their savings. And now that what they're doing is they're filling that void from one check to the next check with a credit card. The article that I was referencing was from was put out by the New York Fed and Wolf Street, first week of August. Great article. I'd recommend anyone who wants to read it, I would recommend it. It's a household debt, delinquencies, collections, and bankruptcies, drunken sailors on debt, right? Basically, they're calling us drunken sailors as consumerists.
Right. Well, I think some of that, we're catching up to maybe a good time during COVID where we were earning more, right? Making more, things were happening. And frankly, at the time, it's a surprising great economy. And we kind of took it. Well, we certainly took advantage of it, but I think some of this come to us as a surprise, and to some extent.
Well, if you go back, one of my very first vlogs, when at the probably April May timeframe in 2021, but was it 2020 when we were sent home, right? So it was in probably the first or second week of May. I talked about what was called a K-shaped recovery. What does a K-shaped recovery look like in our economy? And it literally looks like a K. There's an upper arm of an improving economic scenario for a certain segment of the society, and then the lower leg of the arm, certain scenario, a certain segment or lifestyle for those people that fall in that lower leg. And what I discussed and have on many of my vlogs, that there's a block of consumers that are comfortable in the upper leg of the economy that are now, through no fault of their own, have been dropped down to the lower leg of the K-shaped recovery. I've coined the phrase selective recession. So there are those who are not experiencing financial difficulties to the extent that others may be. It's still tough, because we do remember how much easier it was to afford things than it is today. But there's a large segment of the population that is absolutely struggling with making ends meet today. My local grocery store, it's a Publix, and Publix is it's a nice middle scale type of a grocery store. It's no Whole Foods, right? It's definitely not a Lowe's food and grocery store with it has its own wine and beer you could drink and shop at the same time. It's a very upscale grocery store. The traffic in these types of locations is dropping, where traffic in like Walmart's and lower end grocery stores like Aldi's is picking up across all income levels. That's an indicator that people are looking for ways to try to offset the increased daily cost of living just to eat. That's just one factor, one of many factors.
So, okay. So this is not something made up. This is real. This is happening throughout the USA. This is something that, if we're not embracing, and I'm talking we meaning auto dealers, right? We're embracing that this could be challenging times. You and I were talking earlier, Paul, when you were talking about some of the lenders and how they're pulling back on the reins. And you and I talked about the fact that we've been in the automotive industry for a while.
Long time.
and we've seen lenders up and, it's up and down, right? It's, they're buying all of it and then some. And then now we're at a place again where they're pulling back on that. So how is that affecting car dealers?
Well, significantly, because 80% of all loans, 75 to 80% of all loans are either leased or financed, right? Who controls the purse strings of the loan to value? The lender. The lender gets to tell the dealer, you want to sell this vehicle, you got to ask for this much money down. Here's your terms that you qualify for. Oh, that car they're on is too expensive, or that pre-owned vehicle you're trying to put them in doesn't fit the right parameters they're looking for to satisfy their end goal, which is to have a secured asset, the vehicle, on a collateralized loan that at some point they know will prove profitable, right? That's the end goal for the lender. They don't care about what the dealer has to do. So the loan to value has been restructured and changing through the course of the years. Actually, Experian put out it's called State of the Automotive Finance Market, Q2 2024. Highly recommend. Again, another great resource to educate oneself, to understand what the market is. There are so many factors that influence what we get to do every day in our dealerships that are controlled by other industries. Credit reporting being one of them, lending and financial institutions another. And if we're not educating ourselves to what they're doing, that's impacting the way we need to operate our business every day, and how do we need to adapt our business process within a dealership to fit within the confines of the credit reporting and the lenders, we're doomed to fail. It's not operating business as usual. I call that BAU. We have to, instead of thinking outside the box, throw the box out. There's no box. We got to get very creative. They said
So
that. Yeah.
I find this conversation fascinating to me because I think sometimes, I've been in the dealer space for a very long time in retail. I
Mhm.
mean, retail. And it's interesting when I talk to some of the GMs or dealers who tell me, Becky, um, we don't service subprime customers. That's not who we are. That's not what we do.
Had that
And
conversation this morning.
you see what I'm talking about,
Oh,
right?
it blew
And
me
it's
away.
like, help me with that because
Right.
I don't want to sound like the bad guy, but I'm like, every deal matters. If in fact you're brooming customers who have a FICO score of 620 and below, I mean, why would you do that? Why
Mhm.
why aren't we finding out better ways to put those deals together?
Mhm.
And it's a and you and I talked about subprime in the United States. The percentage of subprime in the United States is what? Do you
So
think?
subprime hits just under 16.7% of all loans, while superprime sees a 7.8% year-over-year growth. That is from Experience Q4 2024 Automotive State of Finance. So 16.7% of all loans are subprime. And that's still considered the lowest penetration in 40 years. And for the last 5 years, we've had a steady decline of overall subprime finance. Now, I got to ask you a question. What would you consider to be subprime? What would be the credit scoring for subprime?
I know what I think.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think 620 is subprime to me. And, I can get into debates when it comes to that. But okay,
So there's a new category
below
that's been
600,
introduced.
575, you tell me.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying, here's what the credit reporting industries are identifying by score category, right? So
Okay.
super prime, 781 to 850, typically reserved for people in their 60s and 70s, have a very thick credit file, lots of paid off balances, and very low balances on their current utilization. That's usually how it's supposed to be. Prime credit has been moved. Now it's 661 to 780. Pre-pandemic, 650 was considered prime. Now the new category is called non-prime. So there's a play
Non-prime.
on words,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Play on words. Well, you're not exactly subprime, but you're not prime anymore. So the non-prime is 601 to 660.
Yeah.
So remember that when I was talking about that K-shaped recovery, the
Are
selective
you saying,
regression.
just want to make sure I get this. So you're saying it's 660? Did I hear that right? No,
Correct.
I didn't hear that right.
Yes, non-prime, according to Experience Q2 2024 State of the Automotive Finance, the non-prime category now comprises a 601 to a 660 credit score.
601. Okay, 660,
Yeah,
depending,
601 to
right, on some of the
660.
variables. Okay. Yeah.
So just a few short years ago, you and I both knew a 650 was prime. What happened
Yeah.
to that?
Didn't
Right?
right. That's why I'm somewhat surprised about that, right? It seemed
Right.
like 650 is it's a no-brainer.
So,
And so when I look at 575, I'm like, that's a no-brainer too. But the thing is that I think dealers need to understand that's true. The lenders are dictating their destiny,
yes. Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And whether or not they're going to thrive or not. But they also need to have a better understanding. Like one of the things that I love about innovative dealers is that they're putting best practices in place. Like they're getting to the understanding of a customer FICO credit score earlier on in the process.
Hmm.
This stuff about let's just land and it blows me away. We still have this going on, Paul.
I
Um,
know.
let's go ahead. Let's land the customer on a car. We'll all figure everything out later when that customer, when we take that deal to the desk. And wouldn't you know it, here we are, we're pulling credit, and then we find out, oh, guess we're on the wrong car, or we can't make this deal happen.
Hmm.
There's so much lost potential because of that.
Right. It's an inefficient process, inefficient strategy. It's not
Based on
conducive.
what's going on in the United States today.
There's too much. There's actually too much information. Now, I'm gonna go back to that 601 to 660. A large portion, a large segment of the population who make up that 601 to 660 pre-pandemic were considered prime. They were used to getting preferred treatment on credit cards and on loans for houses and cars. They're used to that. They expected to be serviced and cared for because they make a decent living. They were raised on credit, so they absolutely know how to use their credit. So the reason why their credit scores are in that range is because they have heavy utilization and a lot of it. It's not because they're bad, they don't pay their bills. These non-prime consumers are consumers who are heavy users. They're consumers, right? And they know how to use and manage their credit, living paycheck to paycheck on credit, but they pay their bills because that's how they were raised. Now they're not getting that. Those same block of consumers are now in the lower leg of this recession, and Becky, they're not qualifying for the rates and the terms they used to qualify for, and they don't like it. And they especially don't like when the scenario you just described is the dealer's trying to throw them against the wall to see if they stick. And they have done all their research. They know what they need to do. And they just need the dealer to basically stop, drop, and roll, shut up and listen to me. And let me show you my research. And if you can tell me that how I can make this work to buy a vehicle from you, I'm a customer for life. But instead, they're throwing these people against the wall like we used to in the 80s.
I think it's bizarre. I mean, it's bizarre to me because I've always been, I know F&I inside and out. I mean, I just do. It's made me who I am in my career. And I just cannot fathom that we don't have a process today put in place to be able to, first of all, identify that customer may have some slow pay history. And we need to identify that sooner rather than later and to determine, right, if in fact the customer's on the right vehicle to begin with. CarMax, I understand, is doing a really good job in identifying that sooner rather than later. And maybe you can talk a little bit about that as well. But that, to me, we need to do a better job in strategizing that and understanding that. The other is understanding how our lenders buy. I mean, how you can just submit a deal without understanding how our lenders buy makes no sense to me at all. And where, again, there are other lenders that might pick up in different scenarios versus maybe another lender, right? Or if in the event we have a trade-in or additional money down or that sort of stuff. So understanding our lender relationship, our lender guidelines really is, I think, is what we need to do. We don't have the talent that we used to do at the desk. We're not doing enough getting off the desk, getting in and finding out about the customer needs. Back in the day, years ago, my boss told me, he goes, Becky, we already have all the reasons why the bank's not or the lender's not going to buy this deal. Your job is to figure out how to get this deal bought, not to have all the reasons why the deal won't get bought. And that stayed with me for a very long time. So I think that we're not only dealing with the fact that we're having challenges in the marketplace, but we're also having challenges where we just don't have the talent like we did. That's kind of like gone away. I don't know.
So one of my general manager buddies called me up. He said, "Dude, I'm seeing I'm seeing two types of consumers more now than I have ever seen. One is the get me done. I'll buy anything you have in stock if you can get me approved. And then the other is those consumers, they can buy anything they want. They just want to steal it. Yeah, I'll buy this car. You got to knock 10 grand off of it. Or if you do this, then yeah, I might buy the car from you. Very two ends of the spectrum. But the process to deal with that customer has changed. We have to approach it from a consultative conversational interview. You mentioned CarMax, right? So
Yeah.
ironically, if you look at the success in Q2 performance results on their 10K reporting, both Carvana and CarMax accelerated their revenue, their revenues and their sales in Q2, in spite of a having inventory that they owned at a higher price point in a depreciating used vehicle market. They figured out ways, and I can tell you that they use several of the strategies that I often recommend, and you and I've talked about, right? You got to use alternative behavioral statistics in addition to a credit score, find lenders who are using that, and behavioral profiles. Those two combined with a credit score can increase the opportunity to do more finance deals, to structure higher quality finance deals.
Can I say something on that real quick
Yeah.
before I forget? So there's a lot of conversation in the marketplace about AI
Sure.
and being able to determine the performance of a loan.
Right.
And as you know, I work with Agora and data, and Agora data really where that started from was their AI machine learning capability of looking at as much as, I think, 360 billion worth of subprime loans.
Right.
And based off of that is their put those metrics together, their guidelines to assure that, hey, we're picking up incremental business that other lenders aren't buying. And yet at the same time, where loans are performing at a higher level.
Right.
Is that what you mean?
It's think of it as a three-legged stool. Actually, there's a four-legged stool, right? You need AI that's been properly trained to identify the best performing potential consumer that's in the non-prime on down, non-prime, subprime, deep subprime categories that will actually pay. And those are usually those consumers that are in those positions through no fault of their own. Right? They did not intentionally go out and just destroy their credit. So how do you find those? Well, the AI can be trained to find that. The second leg in the pillar would be alternative statistics. Alternative statistics, things like if you're renting, which coincidentally today there's more renters in this in the nation than there are mortgages. So these renters, are paying a significant monthly rent, but they're not getting credit for it on their credit report. But it does count on alternative statistics. If it's
so that's very unique. And I think this is something that more and more dealers are learning about.
Yep.
And
I've been talking about it for 5 years since I started the vlogs.
You've been talking about it for quite some time, right? Is that what you said? Like 5 years? So
been trying to promote it and get dealers to get their mind around this. You want an edge in your community? Be the one to find these lenders that are doing it, because there are more and more lenders are now adapted to Agora Financial, great black book partner of ours, right? They're using the latest and greatest type of data and intelligence and insights. They're not making decisions based on the old days of you and I. Let's see what kind of deal we can put together. They're using hardcore statistics, data to make these decisions. Data today is the lighthouse in a lightning storm.
Yeah, and so it's not like back, when we were doing F&I, Paul, when, it was more for me anyway, when it was a gut instinct, and it was like, I know this customer can buy. Come on, let's go ahead. Let's make this deal happen. Come heck or high water. You convince our buyer to, hey, look, I sent you so many deals. Give me a favor. Just go ahead and do me a favor here and buy this deal. But it's based off of certain metrics where they know that off of this, the loan is actually going to perform at a higher level.
Right.
It's very interesting.
Pillar 3, behavioral, right? the behavioral profiling, right? The behavioral analysis. Remember the stories about how you can identify who might be a serial killer based on their behaviors as a child. Did they destroy dolls, and they would do practice um, gutting small animals, and then they progressively got worse. That's a behavioral analysis. Also, a behavioral profile analysis on someone who's typically good at managing a credit profile, even though they're debt heavy, are people who they work 2 jobs, they max out their credit cards, but they pay them every month. They might live paycheck to paycheck, but they're not delinquent on any of their loans. They're just, they know how to tread water because that's how they were raised since 2008. If you think about this, every 8-year-old to 15-year-old in 2008, starting in 2008, that went through the GFC, the Great Financial Crash, and listened and observed what their parents went through, it was drummed into them that when it's your turn to be a mature, responsible adult, you better be good at managing debt. You better be good at living on credit. You got to all these things. Those 18 to 15-year-old, those 8-year-old to 15-year-olds today are the 25 to 35-year-olds that are in the 601 to 660 credit score category. The majority.
Mm-hmm. Well, with Agora, I do know, and their buying criteria guidelines, they're looking at 620 down to 0 FICO scores, thin credit files, and they tell me, Becky, you know what? There are some deals here that other lenders won't pick up. We will, because
Yes.
like what you're talking about, a 0 FICO score doesn't necessarily mean that it's a deal, a customer who won't pay.
Yeah, my wife, perfect
They're
example. She
your
was a
wife.
credit ghost. When I met this woman, credit ghost. Oh my God, how did you live with no credit? Pay cash for everything. Pay cash for everything. That's how she was raised.
Yeah, there are people in the communities, right, that have certain ways that that's what they do. They, it was back in the day when again, growing up, farmers, and there's still
Right.
plenty of them out there who put their money under their mattress. And you're like, where did all this money come from? And they would come in and pay cash for a car. And you're like, how did that happen? Never thought it in a million years, right? That this guy in his overalls was ready to go ahead and dump some money down on your table and pay cash for this truck. It was like, that's unheard of. But this is where it's going today. And this, again, is where dealers need to understand how that's changing up and making a difference, right? And so I want to get through a couple of these other statements that you made, as far as was interesting. You were talking about forbearance plans, and how they've been concluded between October and November 23. What are the implications today? I never even thought through that. What are the implications?
So if you think in terms of, how long does it take for a lender to actually complete and process a filing for a repossession, a foreclosure, credit card charge-offs, it typically takes anywhere from 6 to 18 months for that to really start to snowball, right? So if we're saying, and we do know it concluded late October, early November, all forbearance plans stopped. So that means right now we're 10 months into the 6 to 18 months that we should see a large wave of foreclosures, a large wave of credit charge-offs, a large wave of auto repossessions. And I'm sure you hear it. I'm definitely hearing it in the market that I'm hearing that, man, they're out there. I have a couple buddies of mine that they're unique in the real estate investment community. They're acquiring homes just before foreclosure, and they're just taking over the existing mortgages, making the arrears payments on behalf of the mortgage holder, and signing a contract that basically says, I'm going to pay you an extra $150, $200 a month for the next 5 years but I'm taking over your loan. I'm gonna pay your arrears, and here's another $10,000 for you to go move out and start renting someplace else. And they're
Wow.
assuming these loans at 3.25% because these people that were under forbearance or now are not under forbearance couldn't keep up with the payments. So now
Yeah.
they're 8-9 months in arrears, getting ready to lose the house, and they don't want to. So some very, very entrepreneurial minded people that I know figured out ways to engage those people. I know of a
Wow.
guy who's creating a startup just for the automotive vertical, similar to consignment for those people who can no longer afford their payments. And saying, you list your car with me. Here's what I'm going to do for you. And he's figuring out ways to remove the debt from that consumer, but the consumer still keeps the debt, but brings them current and helps them reestablish their credit, but gets the asset that he can monetize in his new startup. I mean, it's just amazing what I'm seeing entrepreneurs do today with this kind of stuff.
I think it's important for, again, dealers that are watching this to understand that there are always a way. We got to start thinking outside the box. We have got to start strategizing new ideas where it can impact more sales. Like if you remember a year ago, 2 years ago, when I was talking about, I was all about the refi programs. I was all about it. I wasn't wrong. I was
No,
not
you're 100%
wrong.
on it.
I wasn't wrong. And I
you're
said,
on.
dealers, you got to figure out if there's a way to do that in-house, or at least have a better understanding that that's happening. Customers are going to ask for refi, right? And they have done
Automated
it.
too.
I'm sorry?
Automated with AI.
Yes. And I said 2 years, however long it was when we were talking about it, I said, this is the future. That in fact, as you're trying to decision this deal and you get a PTI call, payment to income call, where you could easy enough say, is there another loan, car loan in this person's name, maybe with their spouse, that you could possibly do a refi with to reduce the payment so that the customer can actually afford the new vehicle and fit within the PTI. Guess what happened?
100%.
Not a darn thing. Nothing. Nada. Couldn't listen. Couldn't be a part. And I'm like, I know there are other companies that had taken advantage of this refi. And wouldn't you know it, here comes the chargebacks to dealers. Now, maybe they didn't get hit on the reserve. And that's what they all say. Well, Becky, we're not getting hit on the reserve. I hear you, but you got hit on the products. The products got pulled out of that loan. And I guarantee you, those companies sold other products. They pulled it out. So dealers did get chargebacks off of those products. So what I'm getting at here is that we just got to work smarter. We have to be willing to think outside the box, to strategize. Is there other ways to put these deals together? Quit sending freaking customers down the street to, a competitor to go ahead and buy a car. What are we doing? And so we've got to do a better job with that.
So I see, I have a fintech startup that did everything automatic with a automotive refinance loan opportunity. Recently came back to me and said the program is much more successful than they could have hoped for. And we need to reassess our data users, and we need more. We need more data because the need is greater than we anticipated. So you were all over the opportunity, and it's kind of like the early days of technology. The pager first came out. You saw someone walking around with a pager on their belt. I'm sure a lot of people, the younger generation, like, what's a pager, right? But you saw people walking around with a pager. You associated a level of status. This guy's got a pager, right? And now everyone used to have a pager. Now they don't exist anymore. Same thing with the adoption of the cell phone. Remember the brick cell phone? For the longest time, it was considered rare that someone would have a cell phone. Now everyone has 2 or 3 cell phones.
Well, let me tell you what I remember, my BlackBerry.
Yeah, right.
That never left my head for the longest time. It was everything, and how I could type through that with my thumb. I was just like,
I think the adoption of technology will force this change, and with AI, it will accelerate the adoption even more.
yeah.
There was a time frame from new product, new technology, to reach full scale. It might be 5, 6, 7 years. Now it's with AI, it's maybe 1, 2 years or 3 years, and it's getting to the point. It will get to the point with the way AI is now that technology adoption will now be once every 7 to 9 months because of how fast it can be launched, proven, accelerated, and adopted by the masses in such a short period of time, and be precise. And it's using data and AI to be able to do it.
I think dealers need to hopefully watch this, because if anything, they have to be willing to take the initiative to understand what's available to them, to other dealers, that's staying more competitive in the marketplace.
Right.
So, I see these posts about, your general managers who are unfortunately let go. And yet, the dealer is bringing in, I think Bob Manor, he talks about the new blood coming in with new ideas and strategies, and opening up to doing things different that work. That's what we're talking about. If you're not bringing in these ideas, strategies, utilizing different ways to understand the customer, understand different ways to get more customers bought through AI, different lenders, Agora included.
Yeah.
What are we doing? So isn't that's going to make the difference of whether or not you thrive, or you're just hopefully not go out of business, but whether or not you're going to keep up with the ones that are making it happen.
There's one more piece that we have to discuss, right? We've already talked about the three of the 4 pillars for really a generational change in our industry. And the last one is inventory. Having the right mix of inventory that fits the full spectrum of buyers. If you take a look at any new car dealership today at their overstocked inventory levels, it does not qualify for those people. 75% of the population can't afford the majority of the inventory that's being stocked in dealers' inventories today. So that essentially means that 25 to 30% of the population is what's buying those overpriced, expensive vehicles, right? Now, here's a thought. S&P Global Mobility did an analysis of vehicles on the road. Experian has an incredible report called the VIO, Vehicles in Operation. The average age of the used car on the road today is just under 13 years. Now you segment that, categorize. Okay, what's the car? The average age of the vehicle car, 4-door sedan on the road, 14 years.
Wow.
Think about that. 14 years on the road.
Wow.
Right? The average age of a pickup truck is right at 12. So the average between the two is just about 13, 12.7 to 13.
That's right.
Now, how many of those vehicles are on the road? Over 110 million. Right now, 38% of the entire population of vehicles in operation is between 6 to 14 years of age. Great service potential. But do you think a typical franchise dealer is effectively going after their own brand of 6 to 14 year age of vehicles within their backyard? Because the consumers who are driving those vehicles are spending a significant amount of good money to make those good driving vehicles. I have 2 of them. I got a 2008 and 2009 Honda Accord in my driveway. My girls drive them, 140,000 miles each. Incredible condition, unicorns.
Yeah, I was just talking to my daughter about her Honda.
Yeah, right?
She has the same thing. It's like, why? I mean, she's got a great machine.
Yes. Now, here's the catch-22. Subprime, non-prime, deep subprime. What kind of car are they going to buy?
Well, pre-owned. I mean,
typically 6 to 6 to 14 years of age, an
Yeah.
older, higher mileage vehicle. But the difference is the quality of these 6 to 14-year-old vehicles is way better than it's ever been in our history, right? These are
True.
good running vehicles that are on the road. The strategy should be, I want to service those vehicles so I can make a cash offer 100% every time to buy that 6 to 14-year-old vehicle. So I can resell it to someone that is financially challenged, non-prime, subprime, and deep subprime. Because guess what I get to do? I get to help that consumer that I buy their vehicle out because they weren't a great service customer. Now I've got them into a newer used car or a new car, because my strategies allow me to do that. And now I've got that vehicle that I know has been serviced and reconditioned well, and it's a locally owned car. I can resell this vehicle and it's an insane profit margin on these vehicles. Insane with these things. The return on asset is just insane. That I can resell with and stand by it because it's been a well-loved and cared for car. And guess what? There are lenders doing that. There are lenders who will consider financing I have put together, Black Book has had to create custom residual valuations for a few of our lenders because they, at their request, said, hey, we're getting a lot of finance applications for people who want to finance a 2012 through 2015 model vehicle for 3, 4, 5 years. What's it going to be worth? I need a residual value to put that in my originations and forecasts. So we created one. We can now provide valuations going back to 2012, or if it's new, going out to 144 months. And that was at the request of a few lenders. That's going to increase. The adoption will start increasing, especially if dealers start tapping into this untapped market.
Well, I'm telling you, it definitely is an untapped market. And I will also say a lot of these independent dealers who are listening to you right about now are saying, don't give them any ideas. Here's what I found.
Well, they got to have a good service department. I mean, it depends. You got to have a good service department to make it work.
I know, but I got to tell you, I hear these dealers. I'm in front of these gals, and they all go, we don't need that headache, Becky. We'd rather not have that kind of vehicle. That's not what we're all about. But you're right. There are some of those vehicles they're a gem today, more so than ever before, right?
And
they're reliable more than ever before. It is a good vehicle to start the customer, could be a good vehicle to start the customer and keep the customer, and that's one thing I'll talk about with Agor. Keep our customers in our ecosystem where you have more control, because at the end of the day, we want retention. Retention is king. Cash is king. Retention is king. So we want customers coming back, right? That's the name of the game, to get them back in. So that way we're selling another car. We're helping customers developing that book of business. It's not, is now, point of sale. Yeah. But at the end of the day, we're getting that customer in our ecosystem, because when that happens, we get to sell the customer another vehicle down the road. But not only that, friends, family, right? And neighbors that we can hopefully be able to get these referrals from that customer. There's so much good that can come from it. Let's face it. But the dealers that I talk to, Becky, I don't want that kind of car. That's not what we do. The used car dealer, on the other end, I talk to independent dealers. I got to tell you, they're always forward thinking. They don't have other money, if you will, profit coming from OEM and from other areas as perhaps maybe a franchise dealer will have.
And most
They're
don't have
always fighting for more.
Right.
Right?
They're always
they are. They're willing to go ahead and take a risk, take a shot, and strategize and find maybe a better way to impact sales and profits. But I think all of this, a dealer hopefully will see this as beneficial. Think through some of this, take some of the information from your posts, your stats, and really come to Jesus. Have a management management meeting or manager meeting, and get together with the folks there and say, what can we do to impact volume sales, keeping our customers in our ecosystem, and impacting performance?
Right. So here's the thought on that as well, right? How to get, you dominate. It only takes one or two dealers in every single market to dominate a process where they are the go-to place for service on 6 to 14-year-old vehicles. And then they get the first right to be able to put a cash offer and buy it. Now, what most are not thinking about is our dwindling supply of potential pre-owned vehicles in the market. So you have to create a culture and environment in your local economy that you're the place to be able to buy these good vehicles that are still operating today. If you really think about this, I was reading an article by Salvage, by a Salvage magazine, and then S&P Global Mobility supported it. They said for every one new registration, 2 get destroyed. Right, so the estimates now is between 6 and 7 million passenger vehicle, like cars and trucks, get destroyed every year out of the population. While the last 4 years, we've had 13 million light cars and trucks per year being registered. So we're running a deficit from our current overall vehicle population because we're not selling enough to backfill the supply to keep it steady. And at the same time, we're destroying a certain segment of the population. So we say, Black Book, we predicted that we're going to have a stressed, affordable inventory level on used vehicles well up to 2027 if something doesn't change, right?
Yeah.
So we have to have these strategies, these thought processes, these conversations that are, I don't believe in thinking outside of the box. Take that box, crumple up and throw it out, throw the box out. Everything is game. Everything's game. I remember I did you ever do mind mapping?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, so everything's, what if, right? Just so that's how we've got to get to. What if I could do this? One of my best partners, Shane Bourne. Do you know Shane Bourne from ProMax?
I know Shane Bourne from ProMax. I love ProMax. Yeah, I've always loved ProMax.
About this all the time, and he is so stoked when I say a subprime boom is coming, but it's not going to be a typical subprime boom, right? You got to go back to that 8 to 15-year-old kid that watched their parents suffer through the GFC and how their parents beat into them how to be good consumers. You make a good check, you use your debt, you pay your debt. That's their habit. That's these people. Well, now they're the majority, the non-prime category consumer. They're the majority. They don't want to be treated as non-prime. So a dealer who is incredibly forward-thinking about the strategies and using technologies like ProMax or Agora or some of Upstart Financial as a business partner. I can go on. I got dozens of people that I know are doing or modeling what CarMax, Carvana, and even DriveTime's doing to make it easier for credit distressed consumers to say, I know I'm distressed, but I can afford a $300 payment. What's available to me? Type that in, and it shows me the entire population of inventory that'll fit my parameter of $300. Not what you want to sell me, Mr. Dealer, but what I can actually buy. And then
that's what I think is it's creative and it's smart. It's just smart. Yeah. It's why make it harder when we don't have to. Streamline the process, make it easy. We know when we make things easy, people buy, right? Yeah. And streamline it and make that available. So I gotta say, again, I ProMax, I know ProMax years back. I loved it. I loved the tool. And again, talk about easy. It would align the lender to the customer FICO, to their payment, their budget. I mean, and inventory. It was just, it's a beautiful piece of technology. It just is, and it makes all the sense in the world. I appreciate the idea behind making sure that we're landing the customer on the right vehicle that they budget for, and also obviously aligns with their FICO. Another reason why I like Streamline Auto, with good old Wester and good old John Schultz.
Great guys.
Great guys,
Great
super
guys.
cool guys. Met John Schultz years back when he first started working on Streamline Auto, right? And I
Mhm.
was like, yeah, we're both on the same page when it comes to that. That's where we are today. And taking,
Mhm.
like you said, that technology and utilizing, streamlining it, and making sure that our inventory is right, making sure that we're landing customers on the right vehicle the first time out. Um, that will align with their budget as well as their FICO score. But at the same token, just understand how your lenders buy.
Mhm.
Understand every lender is a little bit different than the other, but understanding the cost of sale, understand what it takes to go ahead and put those deals together. Agora is a little bit different, and
Mhm.
I'm not. I don't want to come across as in marketing for Agora. That's not what this is all about. But I will say it's very different in that it's giving the dealer the ability to get that incremental business,
Mhm.
perhaps maybe that another lender won't buy that based on AI will buy.
Mhm.
That's as simple as you can get, like what you talked about. But more than that, it is a new strategy, which I find fascinating in that it allows the dealer to earn the additional loan on the additional loan profit that they weren't able to do before. And it just puts the two and two together. But again, you got to think outside of something that you're not used to doing.
Right. I ran into, you know how we used to have relationships with our buyers in the
Oh
F&I. So
yeah.
we knew their wives, their kids. They take them out to lunches and
Oh, we
dinners.
take them out to drink.
Right, right. Used to make fun
Exactly
of mine.
right.
I said, "You're a drive-by mugger," right? Because he'd always bring me a coffee mug. So I caught up with him. It's been a couple of years since I spoke to him. I said, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I had to retire." He was already older. He was elderly when I first started working with him.
Yeah.
I developed a relationship with him, and he said, "I had to retire." I'm like, "How? Why?" He says, "I couldn't handle it. I was so anxious at watching the AI that I helped train through my years as an expert originator make decisions on loans that I would absolutely not do. I wouldn't even consider it, and I'd see this book deal, and I take it and I go back to the board and to the product team, and it's look, put this on notice. I'm telling you, 6 to 9 months, it's going to be a bad deal. A couple of years later, that's a high performing loan. It's still performing very well. The AI
That's
saw
right.
something that his experience kept him from seeing, and so he ended up retiring, very very happily retired. Because the anxiety of having to trust data that's not emotional, right? Doesn't care about vacations. It doesn't care about whether people are sick or not. It just looks at the data and then makes a
I
decision based on that.
It is. It's like it bugs you, right?
Right,
And
right.
because you're so used to, reminds me what you're talking reminds me of the time when we used to submit deals to For Credit. And
Mhm,
I would sit there and I would look at it and I'd have a gentleman that I worked with, Danny Price, and he'd say, I said, Danny, I don't see it. I don't see, put it in, Becky, put it in. Well,
mhm,
you just never know, Becky, put it in. And we would make bets whether or not it would come back of one or it come back of tier four, right?
mhm, mhm,
And it would blow me away. It would
mhm.
blow me away. I could look at this deal and I'd say, there's no way in heck this deal's getting done. And not
Right.
only did it get done, it got done on tier one or two. And so in a way, they had internal scoring systems going on there
Correct.
with Ford. So this is something that we're kind of working with, right? In a way with AI, it's like this is figuring different models out, if you will, that we're not aware of that they have predicted that the loan will perform at a higher level. And what you know it, this is why we're getting other deals approved that
Mhm.
other lenders won't necessarily buy.
Yeah, the data, when you have millions and millions of data points across the various types of consumers, the data can actually pinpoint, whether this class or this segment category with these types of alternative statistics and these kind of behavioral analysis, and if they're placed on this kind of inventory, they're significantly a greater return on investment than this class category of consumer. So it's constantly modulating the process based on instant data retrieval, right? And you need companies that that are constantly developing that kind of software. That's what I love about. I could tell you that Shane Bourne's product management team, none of them think outside of the box. They all throw the box out. And those guys are phenomenal with some of the stuff that they're coming up with and what they're creating.
I couldn't agree with you more. I find it all fascinating, and I have, I don't know, in my career, I've been I guess I've had the opportunity of working with some of the most talented, most innovative individuals, and it has taken me to higher levels than I've ever imagined in my entire career.
Yeah.
At the time, years back when working with Wayne Huizinga, AutoNation, and I was looking at some of those photos the other day, and everyone and their mother said, "Becky, you don't want to take that deal.
Right.
That's not a good deal, Becky, because there's no way they're going to be successful. You're not going to be successful in the AutoNation mega stores, meeting customers at a kiosk in the middle of a showroom and presenting this menu. Who does that? That's not going to work, don't you know?" And
right.
it turned out that it worked.
Yeah.
Like, it took me over 20 years of my career, really, and helping dealers to understand the idea behind that concept and streamlining processes. But it's the thinking away, thinking, why not? That's really what it is. Why not? Can't we?
Right.
And stretch that our thinking, right?
So real quick, I want to add this before we have to cut this, right?
Yeah.
Why do I believe
a little bit longer than what we thought? But I got to tell you, you're fascinating, and I so much enjoy our conversation.
I think the same way of you. I mean, just
thank you.
We need these kinds of conversations that some people might get offended by, but they got to hear it. The truth is always can be offensive if you're not doing it right. Right. So why do I believe we got a subprime boom? I believe that we have, as a consumer-based, credit-driven economy, the government can't afford to let us crash significantly like that. I believe we're going to see programs that will be introduced that will help these consumers, especially those that are non-prime, that are at risk becoming subprime, alter their credit model. One of those is the second lien pilot program. And I think you and I talked about that, right?
Yeah, and you also had that on your post. Right. Yes.
So only like 40 some odd thousand homes would qualify. Actually, that's all that can qualify because it's a trial. But you don't hear much about it. Like 2 days, it was talked about it, right? So this second lien pilot program, what it does is it helps consumers who are locked in to that 2 to 4% mortgage, but don't want to give it up, but they would like to access some of the equity they have. Well, now this second lien pilot program allows that mortgagee to maintain their first primary mortgage without going to a HELOC and getting a higher rate on HELOC, but actually qualifying through, end up being the mortgage with Freddie Mac or Fannie Mae at a much lower interest rate mortgage so that they can tap some of that equity. It's never been done before. Now there are some strings attached to it, but only 40,000 homes are going to qualify. That's all of this trial period can book. It's about $2.5 billion of money set aside for it. So that's one of the programs I know of. There's another program that's coming out that will allow so many immigrants are in our country, and they're living, right? They're living. They've got alternative statistics. They have a behavioral analysis. They may not have much of a credit file. That zero credit score we're talking about, a large majority of these immigrants that are here have either no file or zero, thin file or zero credit score, right? But they've got everything else. They're driving cars, they're making rent payments, they're paying for Verizon cell phone bills and all these other things. So there's conversation that I know of at government levels that's working with a couple of fintech partners that I'm working with that are saying, there's got to be a way that we can help these people buy their first vehicle. and do it and get credit for it. And if there's a way that we can structure a subsidy down payment plan to help them buy it and also help them prepay for their insurance for the first year or two, how many of those qualified immigrants can we help get into their first vehicle? Do you know how many qualified immigrants are right now not driving a vehicle that's financed, either subprime, deep subprime, or non-prime? They say there's something like 10 million people like that in the country that can qualify. And
There's so much to be, and that's why I think we can't shut the door on this, right? We can't shut the door. And, I know I go back to my own experiences in my life, but it reminds me, years back, I'm working at a Toyota store in Annapolis, Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
And Becky, don't you know, we don't have subprime customers in Annapolis, Maryland. They don't exist. And it turned out, guess what? They do. And we were able to service them. And so the only thing that I think it's important dealers understand these programs, that they understand what's happening in their own backyards.
Mm-hmm.
So that way they can better service their customer needs. And, even to a point, and I know I'm going probably into a rabbit hole with this one, but even to something where I started thinking through this since I've been working more obviously with Hokora, but it's not always about point of sale.
Right.
We have to do a better job in understanding that customer relationship from sale to the time the customer, like you mentioned, not only then, but later beyond the point of sale in service.
You and I have talked about it often, right? We talk about it often. Is leadership trained to properly engage the new breed of non-prime, near-prime, and subprime consumer?
Yep.
And I can say for sure, nope, they're not. The majority are definitely not able to have those kinds of conversations. And
it's time to. It really is. It's time to get these guys trained up at the desk. It's time for them to have a much better understanding of their lender guidelines, what's new in the industry, Upstart, any of the other lenders that are doing more on the AI and these other tools and technology that is helping a dealer to manage his business better and being able to utilize these tools. There's another tool, which I thought was absolutely fascinating. And I know we got to shut this down soon, but I just so much enjoy you. It's where I believe it's the customer phone number or cell phone and able to pull up, to be able to determine a soft pull based off their phone number to be able to back into a payment that the customer will likely get approved for. Why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't a dealer have that? Or, and for years I've liked it, Turbo Pass.
Yeah.
I'm like, why aren't we utilizing these tools? What the heck's going on?
Yeah, I actually have one of my credit bureau partners is actually working on a platform to do just what you described, to where they will deliver a lower funnel, higher quality lead than a dealer. It's a fantasy what they're going to be able to deliver, but it's a reality because they could use AI. They're going to use the 4 pillars that I've described in a part of their program. So when they serve up this customer to whichever dealer group's on their platform, it's a done deal. Basically, it is a done deal.
It is I know. And I'm seeing some of this stuff and I'm like, whoa, this is a way. Why can't we get there? Why can't dealers understand the advantage? I think that it brings so much to the table today, more so than ever before. It's fascinating. But I tell you, before we go ahead and call it an evening, any kind of last statements that you would like to share, with our dealers tonight?
Trust the data more than anything else, right? And there are so many good partners that are out there now that can help a dealer decipher the data. and they're great partners like yourself that can train and help educate a dealership from the top down, front to back, to truly
Amen.
be responsible for that customer, right? And we need to leverage those. We need to get into those relationships. It's a bilateral relationship we have to have. We can no longer be vendors. We have to be a vested partner.
How can dealers find you, Paul? Where are you? Where are you? Where do you? I know you exist on LinkedIn, yes, and other places. Where can they find you? Are you YouTube?
I stay focused on LinkedIn for the professional aspects of it. I've shied away from YouTube and Facebook and all those other, because you can get down a rabbit hole on those.
I
But
can understand that.
everyone knows, for over 20 years, I've had the same phone number. Every vlog I put out there, I put my phone number out there. They say, "Oh, you shouldn't do that," but I've got over 35,000 contacts in my cell phone, so I can't help. I got to share my number, right?
Well,
So it's easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so people can find me on paul.machine@blackbook.com, and my number. I'm easy to get to.
Well, it's a pleasure again for having you come on tonight. And look him up, guys. Paul Machin on LinkedIn. He is there, and his podcasts are terrific, and his information is right on. I mean, to tell you, if you want to get some stats, some real good stats, Paul Machin is it. And I think we've lost Mr. Paul Machin. So we'll just go ahead and
No,
call
no,
it
I'm
an
here.
evening. And here he comes. He's back.
I'm sorry. There's a delay in the signal, but I'm here. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much, Becky. And I look forward to working with anyone who responds to us.
Absolutely. And thank you again, guys. I appreciate it. And hang on tight there, Paul, before you go ahead and close out tonight. So let's just thank you again, guys. And next Thursday at 8 p.m., be there or be square.